Alright, we're back, but one Philly receiver won't be. While an NFL ruling change isn't going to help anyone, yet the Tush Push situation received some great news. And as we continue to wait on a potential Justin Simmons signing, one more safety is in the Birds' sights. Plus, Howie Roseman may be making a push to keep Haason Reddick, but guarantees the Eagles aren't done with moves. So let's talk about it. But first, let's run it. What's up, guys? I'm back after the brief hiatus to celebrate my brother's wedding, and after dancing with my 2-year-old at the reception, I'm just convinced that time goes by way too fast. Although maybe that's not the same feeling I get after ESPN's Jeremy Fowler announced the Eagles are moving on from Quez Watkins, with Pittsburgh Steelers signing him to a contract. As Brandon Lee Gouton began his article with, "Our long national nightmare is over. Quez Watkins is leaving the Philadelphia Eagles."
The reason that we are here is to say goodbye to a guy who we will probably never ever see again.
Well, actually, we'll see him back in a few months at the Link whenever the Birds host the Steelers, but at least it's not just temporary. Unfortunately, the speedster never took off and flourished. Sure, he had his moments, especially in 2021, where he caught 43 receptions for 647 yards and 1 touchdown. Yet, like we all saw, it just went downhill from there, where over the last 2 years combined, the 25-year-old totaled just 48 catches for 496 yards. However, yes, playing behind Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown as well as Dallas Goedert doesn't really allow you to get many catches, and it makes things tougher on the consistency side. But I think it's what he did whenever he got some action that left the vast majority of us very pleased with his departure. Now, the other departure that hasn't been met with as much agreement is the NFL doing away with the hip drop, where from here on out, officials will be asked to watch for any of the illegal tackles and throw a flag for the 15-yard penalty and an automatic first down, which I talked about quite a bit of this in my previous video. And is anyone really surprised by the incredible amount of backlash from NFL players, particularly on the defensive side, basically all having one message for the league, slowly turning this thing into flag football?
There's no way that hurt. You're so weak.
It's sad, really, but the NFL doesn't care. I mean, the non-profit, no-fun league is really, well, all about profit. Like you all have said it, and I've said it as well, but football is physical. Sure, I'm okay taking away some of the vicious shots to players' heads, but eventually there's gotta be a limit. But it left Slay, like just about every other player in the league, saying there's about to be a ton of missed tackles. I mean, can you imagine? Now we're gonna have high-leverage situations be impacted by a stupid, silly call because a defender can't use his body to bring down another guy? By the way, just in case you're kidding yourself, there's going to be multiple instances of this ruining games or at least affecting the outcome of games, because in high leverage situations, if a ball carrier is taken off, how does guy take him down from behind? Use the hip drop tackle. Anyway, what are y'all's thoughts on this and some of the other rule changes that passed? I will say that the silver lining could be like NFL analyst Matt Bowen is feeling, citing that Philadelphia is the most improved team through free agency so far, saying it's hard to argue against the Eagles after they added some difference makers in free agency. Running back Saquon Barkley has the explosive dual threat ability to elevate the Philly offense. On defense, outside linebacker Bryce Huff is a flamethrower off the edge, while safety C.J. Gardner-Johnson has the versatility and demeanor to boost a secondary that struggled in 2023. Obviously, I'm biased, but the Birds have to be pretty high up there. Plus, given this new rule change, it's pretty obvious to see why Howie Roseman changed his sights and went after Saquon Barkley. Like, you're telling me as hard as it is to bring down Saquon, now guys can't use the hip drop from behind? You know, actually, on second thought, that rule, it's really not so bad. I mean, we want players to stay healthy. Okay, seriously, despite where you're at on the argument, you can't deny that it's genius to be loading up on offense, especially as defenses are just keep getting hamstrung. Oh yeah, also add the fact that the NFL's most unstoppable play, the tush push or brotherly shove, is here to stay. And Philly's sitting pretty. Apparently, the NFL consulted with the competition committee, health and safety committees, along with several other groups, and said there's no plans to ban it anytime soon, while NFL executive and former Eagle Troy Vincent also added the Eagles do it well and that they'll leave it alone. It's funny, so after all the reports last season of saying, oh, it's terrible for the game, it's going to get players hurt, this is not great for the longevity, concussions, everything else, now you're telling me that it didn't even get brought up as a proposal to get banned? I don't know, maybe all it took was to see a blueprint of how to stop it, aka, like in the playoff game, try to rip Jalen Hurts' face mask off and pray to God a penalty doesn't get called. I'm sorry, but that was as clear and as obvious as it gets. Who knows, maybe it's the fact that Jason Kelce's gone so the league doesn't feel like it'll be as productive. Call me crazy, and I know there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve, but I really don't expect the percentage to drop that much, even though Cam Jurgens is now sliding in for Jason Kelce. However, while the brotherly shove is here to stay, there's one piece that could be on the move in Haason Reddick. I know, I've said that for multiple weeks now, although there's a glimmer of hope that he stays now. as Howie Roseman is at the NFL meetings in Orlando, naturally seated in the middle of the other GMs, because after all, where else do you situate the Godfather? Anyway, the Birds GM didn't want to say too much about the Reddick situation, which makes a lot of sense considering the continued reports of Howie taking calls from Arizona and Atlanta as the most likely suitors in a trade, although we've now had it confirmed multiple times that the Eagles aren't budging on their asking price for Haason Reddick, so perhaps no deal gets done.
We are prepared to make you a very generous offer.
And we are prepared to reject that offer.
Personally, I still think Haas gets traded. Yet Howard Eskin reported that he did ask Roseman about the situation at the owners' meeting, with the GM sounding like he's hoping it works itself out since there's still time and it's only March to get a contract extension done. Alright, so maybe it's not impossible, and again, you guys know this, I would prefer for him to stay. We're much better if Haas is here rather than him going, but still, like I just said, I don't know that that's likely. However, I think we've all seen a ton of examples where Howie's willing to wait it out and find his value for a specific player. So the long drawn out saga will continue, and I won't be surprised if it takes even up till draft or even after the draft for Haason Reddick to get figured out. But another signing we're all continuing to wait on is Justin Simmons. And we've literally been talking about that potential for 2 weeks at this point. Yet you can't blame the All-Pro for taking the Roseman approach and holding firm to his offer. Although, like we've talked about a number of times, given the delay, it's kind of better in this situation for Justin Simmons, because his price is without a doubt dropping, so there's no way he's getting something like $15 million per year. And like Ruben Frank shared, if Kevin Byard is worth $7.5 million, then Simmons would probably realistically be worth 9 to 10. Which I agree with Rube, even if you go this route, you're not giving up on Reed Blankenship or Sidney Brown, saying, but Simmons and C.J. Gardner-Johnson are both proven elite players. Now, you don't want to load up on too many older free agents, and Simmons does turn 31 in November, and we just watched James Bradbury lose it overnight. But if Simmons would take a 2-year, $18 or $19 million deal and the Eagles can line up Simmons and C.J. Gardner-Johnson together at safety, I'd do that in a New York minute. I would do that without question. How about you guys, though? I mean, at least Howie did say that he's trying to get better every day at the NFL owners meeting and that he hasn't given up on the idea of Simmons. However, that it depends on the price point, so ultimately they'll see how it plays out. And although that wasn't a definitive statement, Eagles insider Dave Spadaro did get a guarantee from Howie that he's not done despite the bigger signings so far, saying we're not done yet and we're always looking and working to try to improve the roster, while also noting that he has very big plans for the NFL draft weekend. Now, who knows what that means exactly, although I'm leaning towards that being one more bigger signing or even a potential trade during the draft. Or another hypothetical for you. Let's say that you could only pick one of the two. You keep Haason Reddick or you sign Justin Simmons and bring him in. Which one are you picking and why? It's also worth mentioning that even if Simmons doesn't get reunited with Vic Fangio, Howie's not done looking to add a safety, with the most recent report saying the Eagles have shown interest in two-time All-Pro safety Micah Hyde, along with the Bills, Colts, and Jets. Personally, they can have him. Sure, Hyde would be a solid depth addition, but at 33 years old, I think that's where I draw the line. I'm fine making an exception for the talent of Justin Simmons because I have no doubt that he's got a lot more left in the tank, but I would rather invest in someone else than Hyde. But let's move on. The next bit of news to mention is that the Birds signed former Cowboys quarterback Will Grier to a 1-year contract on Friday, which was more than a little interesting. Of course, let's not get carried away with the conspiracy theorists saying that he's coming in here to compete for the quarterback job or Jalen Hurts is getting traded away. This is more so to add another guy you trust to the roster and bring in a little competition for the QB3 spot. And you know what? See if he can add some depth to Kellen Moore's offense. Remember, Grier spent 2 seasons serving mostly as the third-string backup with Moore and quarterback coach Doug Nussmeier in Dallas, so he's obviously familiar with the scheme and system. At the same time, I'm not expecting too much from Grier either, because granted, it's a small sample size, but he only has 2 starts under his belt, losing both and completing just 53% of his passes with 4 interceptions and a 33.2 passer rating. But sure, he did play much better in Dallas, albeit that was just the preseason action, so I guess time will tell, but let's not make this bigger than it actually is. One area that I don't think is an overreaction is hearing Howie Roseman's comments about cornerback, with Zach Berman sharing the Eagles remain bullish on Darius Slay, as Howie said Slay did an unbelievable job when we had him on #1 receivers last year. Also, while it's no secret that James Bradbury didn't have the year the team expected and was burnt buried, the Eagles aren't talking around that. Or maybe that's just Roseman trying to get everyone ready for JB to return, as he said he's driven to show he's the player he was in 2022. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be negative, but I really just can't buy that. Although I do agree with the optimism around Keely Ringo, citing the 3rd-round pick they gave up to go get him last year and that they expect him to take a major jump, as well as seeing some promise around Eli Ricks. Plus, Roseman said there's also hope Isaiah Rodgers is reinstated, and recent signing Tyler Hall is a guy that they've had their eye on for a while, so interested to get him in the building. Not gonna lie, that doesn't make me feel great about the chances of drafting Quinyon Mitchell or any top corner in the 1st round, but I guess we'll see. Also, like I talked about more in my last video, the addition of wide receiver Parris Campbell is an interesting one, and I've got more to touch on about the options and ideas for Philly's potential wide receiver 3. But I'll talk about that one more in my next video, so make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. This has been The Philly Special.